We are live. Go ahead, Don.
Good morning and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for July the 12th, 2023. My name is Don Popple and I'm your chairman today. And the members of the committee who are here are Mr. Gerald Walker and Councillor Barry Boyce and Mr. Bishop, Chris Bishop, in full of sartorial splendor. The committee today is the purpose of the committee today is to hear 6 applications to the zoning to the variance of zoning bylaw and the special plan. So it's this committee's responsibility to consider all the information that's received to date regarding the requested variances and to hear and consider any comments or questions provided by these applications. Actually, I forgot to introduce Danielle Vibert, who is our secretary treasurer, and Adam Mayer, who is a planning administrative clerk, are with us today. I think Jeff Isles is with us by remote. So anyway, any variances granted by this committee must meet 4 tests, which are very clearly defined in the Planning Act. Requested variances must be minor in nature, desirable for proper development of the land, comply with the general intent of the official plan, and comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. And please note that if anyone wishes to be notified of the decision, please make a request in writing to the municipality. Are there any members of the committee who wish to declare a conflict of interest to any of these applications? That being none, we'll proceed. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of this meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time the application is considered. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposals. Please direct all your questions and comments to the chair. Each registered person will have up to 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. And once finished speaking, the meeting host, who is Danielle, will mute your microphone. Please state your name in relation to the application prior to speaking. And the first application today is the lands of Boulay.
Don, do you want to do the minutes?
Oh, yes. Before we do that, I'm going to look for a second mover and a second to adopt the minutes. June the 14th. Moved by Barry Boyce. Chris Bishop. Be resolved, the meetings from the Committee of Adjustment on June 14th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Please indicate your support. Okay, that's carried. You're away.
The first application is on the screen.
So
They're on the screen.
this is Mr. Boulay up here, is it?
And his agent, Russ Gregory.
Russ Gregory, are you representing this application?
Mr. Chair, yes, I am. I'd like to make a brief presentation and then put it to committee.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. We have an application in front of you for 3 minor variances to do with the property at 1015 Treasure Road on Halliburton Lake. They are fairly self-explanatory. I will assume that some of the committee has been out to see the situation there. And we have designed a beautiful seasonal house for the Boulay family in place of the small cottage that is on the property now. We've worked with them for close to a year now to get this to the point that we could submit it to the committee. We worked with staff, with Jeff Isles, to make sure that we were understood in all the boundaries that we had. The biggest problem we have, of course, is the high water mark and the north side of Treasure Road really do squeeze this property. So we've designed a house that will accommodate the property, albeit close to the actual road, but in our intention, this road is not well traveled. It only supplies access for the neighbor to the east, coming past this cottage. And my understanding is the owners have spoken to them. There are no real concerns on their behalf. And we've done what we could to maintain the required side yards of 4.5 meters, 6.3 on the east side, just because of the contour of the land. And as you can see from our site plan, we've been able to fit this house in while keeping in mind that the road is there and keeping in mind the front point of the existing cottage is our sort of build to point. I guess what I would like to do is see if the committee has any questions, and I won't take up too much time with a presentation. You can see how the nice cottage is situated on the property, and the elevations also show very nicely. So, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it to you for questions.
Gregory, I don't believe we have a lot of problems with respect to what you're asking for, but I'll open it up to the members of the committee if there are any questions to go ahead and put them on the floor. Anybody have any?
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so I toured up to the site and had a look at it, and well, there seems to be enough space to do maintenance, and like I say, there is only the one neighbor to the east, so didn't seem to be having any issues with me.
You were there as well, Barry, right?
Yeah, I've been there too, and I'm of the same opinion. Yep. No, sorry.
I never had a chance to visit it, but I guess my only concern that I look at is it seems to be choked down there, but you did mention there's only one, is there only one property past it?
Yeah, one property.
Just one property?
Yeah.
And do we have written comments from that neighbor about getting through there?
No, we don't have any comments from the neighbor, but Mr. Boulay did say that it shouldn't affect road maintenance.
Okay,
As
and
he's
is
the one
this
who maintains the road.
good, is this road maintained in the winter for,
By Mr. Boulay.
so there's privately? So there is room for snow, and
Yeah.
if that cottage gets that close to the road?
Yeah.
For removal?
And sorry, Danielle, the neighbor, they would have had a chance to, if they wanted to, they could have.
Yep,
Yeah,
so we
they've been
we
notified,
circulate all
yeah.
neighbors,
Yep.
and we did receive comments that the Public Works Department has no comment for the file.
Good,
So,
thanks.
would you like me to read out the conditions? Would you like me to read out the conditions? Want to turn your mic on? Don, want to turn your mic back on?
Sorry, Danielle,
Perfect. So the,
indicate the conditions that are going to be appropriate to the,
so this variance applies to the private cabin and the dwelling, generally shown on the property sketch. The tree shoreline preservation bylaw applies during construction. During construction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used. Prior to the pouring of the footings, the applicants must obtain a building permit for the private cabin. And prior to the pouring of footings, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the dwelling and private cabin meet the granted street setback.
those don't present any problem to you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I've read through them and everything is fine.
Okay. We'll bring I need a mover and a seconder to be it resolved, the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2023-007 be recorded as follows. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Chris. And second by Barry Boyce. Okay, variance to section of 3.30 to permit a dwelling to have a street setback from the edge of the traveled portion of Treasure Drive of 0 meters as opposed to the permitted 7.5 or 25 feet is granted. Can indicate your support. Thank you. Variance to section 3.30 to permit a private cabin to have a street setback from the edge of the traveled portion of Treasure Drive of 1.6 meters or 4.7 feet as opposed to permitted 7.5 meters or 25 feet. Carried. Granted. And a variance to section 3.30 to permit a private cabin to have a street setback from the center of Dunn Road of 11.04 meters or 36 feet as opposed to permitted 17.5 meters or 57 feet is granted. Carried. So the three applications for the variance are okay to go. And thank you very much for your participation in the meeting today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Appreciate your time.
There is a waiting period of 21 days, 20 days actually. So before you begin anything, that's what you should have in mind. But you can apply for the permits to do what you want to do and carry on from there.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Same to you. So next, we're going to deal with the lands of Burley. People like, you can take a seat right there and you can even tap the microphone and the centerpiece on and we'll be all set.
That's the first one. I have the second one.
So what we're looking for is a variance from section 5.2 to permit a gazebo to have a 10 meter or 33-foot water setback as opposed to the permitted 20 meters or 66 feet. And we do have a letter from the Cottager Association. Is that not correct?
That is
Could
correct.
you read out the pertinent part of that?
Yes, so we received comments from the Kinesis Lake Cottage Owners Association. They object to the request of the variance for the gazebo within the minimum water setback, which is not permitted in the Dysart zoning bylaw in the WR4 zone. They also commented saying that they want like the natural looking shorelines and it doesn't meet with their Kinesis Lake plan.
So perhaps would you care to respond to that?
Well, I would just wonder if it's possible to be grandfathered because that structure went up in 1999. And we actually didn't put a roof on till later, but that was about, 10 or 12 years ago. We actually had 4 posts that were up and, ugly, basically. Nobody complained about it. We couldn't decide what to do, whether to have a roof, which we thought would be nice when it rained. We could have our lunch out there or dinner. It's a square table that seats 4. I think you've seen the pictures. And, we just couldn't decide. And then finally we decided, well, why don't we put a roof on? So we did about 12 years ago. So I wondered if that couldn't be grandfathered. And also, if you look at the pictures, it's not ugly. I mean, it's not ugly when you're up on our deck, which family and friends are. And certainly from the water, I think we've shown with the pictures, we've supplied one today that my sister-in-law had of all the kids, all the cousins in birth order. And that picture was taken, well, now these kids are 40 years old, 30 and 40 years old. That was taken, with the old cottage in the background. And then you can compare it to the new cottage and you can see the stairs coming down. You can see everything that you see. And it's not offensive and
They're in the same.
they're the same. Yeah. It's, we built because we were allowed in the footprint of the old cottage. And I didn't take many pictures of the old cottage. I was telling Danielle because it was old and falling down and when you take a picture, a staged picture, typically we got lots of water there and beautiful trees. So there wasn't a lot of pictures that I took, but she took this one of them all in birth order, all the cousins. And so I was able to provide that. Did you want to say something, Gord?
Well, this gazebo, we call it a covered porch, is about 10 feet from
The kitchen.
Kitchen. It's on the deck that is there and approved. Tell you the truth, we never expected to have any problem with it.
No, like
We-
we were gobsmacked. We just couldn't believe because, and then when I asked about it, it doesn't have balls and it lines up. It only comes out as far as the prow and I provided a picture of that. And you can't see it from as close as that picture was taken, where, you know, I'm standing in the water. You can't see. And my son actually was sitting, I said, wear a red shirt, sit there and face the water.
If I can see it.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? I couldn't see him. And I took a picture and you can see, you know, maybe if you kind of, you know, bring it in a little closer, you'd be able to see his red shirt or something, but, you know.
Was there any way you can move it back?
Oh, no, I mean, it's part of the structure of the deck. There's no moving it anywhere. I mean, it goes right through into concrete. And it holds that deck up on that side.
The joists go through and use those posts as.
It's a
as
major,
Support for it.
major
The-
thing.
The other thing, a bit of background, we started this about 5 years ago, not this particular.
This process.
We applied for, we had the property surveyed. And the surveyor at the time, who was Greg Bishop, said, if you look at one of our maps, there are two portions to this property. There is a causeway, which was built in the 50s by Bill Curry to join this property to the mainland. And the two properties were always separated. And when the township went through, they amalgamated the two. And
And we had paid taxes on two properties for many, many years. And just a couple of years ago,
so in May,
I guess they rethought it.
so in May, something had been forwarded to MPAC, which amalgamated these two. And that was in May, and we weren't informed of this until September. And then we got on with it because we wanted these to be two separate pieces. Because we had promised that the end piece, the end lot, lot 30, would be given to our son. And
One of our sons.
one of our sons. And Greg Bishop at the time said, you better get, although there's a road through there now, to the other property. He said, you better get a
Right away.
right of way to formalize this.
Now.
When you go, it'll be impossible. And so otherwise he would have a water access lot. Because the road
Mhm.
goes through in the second property. That started about 5 years ago. And since then, it's just been evolving into, we had a dock check, 2 docks checked for their being there. They were there since 1956 or even a little earlier. And then when they went out and visited property, we got this note saying this gazebo here is going to be a problem. And there's also, well, something you'll look at a little later, another cabin that was built. It's about 80
Oh.
feet back in the woods. I don't
Long
want
time
to,
ago.
I don't want to confuse the issue with that. But we were then said, well, you're gonna have to get a variance for those now.
Yeah,
And so that's what we've done. And we're hoping that the 33 feet is what the cottage is built 24 feet close to the water. The original one was very close to the water. We're back further than that. And the deck is I believe it's 10 feet. That's what we were allowed in front of the cottage. Just to the side of it was the piece of the section of deck that this covered porch was on. Now, we had assumed that that deck was incorporating this structure. And I guess if we put a roof over top of it, joining it to the structure, it would have been. But it wasn't.
Yeah,
We
we just
weren't even thinking about this.
never occurred to us.
So
And we've been using it for all these years. That's what I'm talking about, grandfathering. this.
Well-
Well, you know, I mean, we appreciate what the KLCOA does because we've been on that lake. Well, my husband has been on the lake since the sixties and we bought our property in 1989 when we had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And, you know, they played, and in fact, we'd probably be accused of, you know, child abuse because we allowed our kids to go out into that beautiful country and build tree houses, you know, actually put nails in, you know, live trees. I mean, I'm sure that's frowned upon now, you know, and no one's going to admit to letting their kid do that. But they'd eat their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches up in those trees. And then they even built a condominium one year. And then the height of their building, they actually from one cousin's house across the way on the shore to our island, they built a line. It would be a zip line today. And then they proceeded to launch themselves, you know, from one property to the other over the water, you know, and who would let their kids do that or admit to it? But
All of that.
our
has been
kids all
taken
grew
down.
up. We've got 3 kids. They all turned out to be 3 doctors. And we're, you know, we did something right. And we actually say it's because we had that place to go. We had that cottage and they were, you know, they were free and not free as it were.
Well, did the original building that was on there, did you have a permit for that?
Yeah,
Yes,
The problem for our committee is that we usually, have to take complaints, which is what you've got ahead of you from the Cottager Association. And we have a lot of pressure on us with water setbacks. And it starts right at the province of Ontario. And so that's how this ends up on our lap. And unfortunately, we have to take a look at the big picture. And there's a lot of people who can't make a presentation like what you have done, but they just go ahead and put it there and then think, well, we'll apply for a variance and get it approved that way.
that was
That
the
was-
case.
no,
I realize that from what you've said. However, the committee has to take something from the Cottager Association pretty severely, so.
Can you
well,
read the one from
yeah,
Mr. Prince, who said, I'm sorry, we think you're fine here, but we have to object to everything.
yeah, they said
It's
it's a
just a
standard,
blanket.
standard
If
procedure.
it's within.
So that's what
specific
I
feet.
understand it to be, because I sent him those pictures to show him, you know, what it was, and that it's been there. Like he said, basically, that he wasn't aware that that property had that building on it for all those years, like from 1999. You know, that's when we built our cottage. And so that deck, everything was there, including those gigantic posts. You know, to me, they're big, and you know, and they are ugly and were ugly for a while until we put the roof on. Now, you know, I mean, we never thought that would be,
We were.
I'm not suggesting that you did that on purpose. That's not what I'm not suggesting that you did that without thinking about it, yeah.
And it looks so sensitive. Sorry.
That's okay.
Daniel.
I was just gonna comment saying like, unfortunately, I understand the grandfathering part, but it would have had to be built prior to 1977 for it to be grandfathered in.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
we understand.
yeah, so
Yeah,
because it's
okay.
after and
I
like,
forgot about that, but
and the reason why like the KLOCA is also objecting to it is because it doesn't comply with our policies. So like our official plan, like section 5.1.2 of our official plan says that all structures and buildings are to be within the, like, beyond the water setback. And that the water setback and the zoning bylaws to be strictly adhered to. So that's where we don't allow any accessory buildings within the water setback. If the gazebo was attached to your house and wasn't any closer to the water, that may be a little different, but because it's an accessory building within the water setback, that's why the staff recommendation is that it not be approved.
So if I'm, if we could build, extend a roof from the building to this small building, then it would be okay?
You would have to talk to the building department because I believe it can't be any closer to the water than your dwelling is currently.
It's not.
So I don't know what your setback is for there. As well as it would have to be a continuous run. So anything that's considered to be attached to, or is an extension of the dwelling, that could probably be considered, but
See, we thought the deck was doing that.
unfortunately it has to be continuous from the house. A deck, is considered to be an open deck, not enclosed. The moment you put a roof on top of something, it's considered to be enclosed in a structure.
Off and then just put like a decorative board around or, you know.
It just can't have a roof or walls for it to be not considered a structure.
Anyway, I'll just read what Jim sent me. Diane and Gore, thanks for the note and the clarifications. Indeed, the variance application from Dysart was light on details. The KLCOA responded on principle and as a matter of established process. As the variance is requesting a variance for structures in the shoreline setback, again, with no prejudice to you folks, and to avoid have the committee set precedents. Good luck with the tomorrow. So, I mean, and I sent him, I could have sent this to you and I didn't think of it, but, you know, I just sent it and I explained that it was built in the footprint of the old cottage and I explained the detail, how long it's been there and no one's ever complained about it. You can't see it from the water. It doesn't offend anybody and nothing is flowing from there into the water. It's just a place to sit and have your coffee. That's all it is.
Don, would you like me to read out the conditions?
Hmm.
Would you like me to read out the conditions?
Yeah.
So, as staff, do not recommend the variance to permit the gazebo, but if the committee shall, entertain the idea of granting the variance, these conditions would apply. So the variance complies to, the gazebo generally shown on property sketch A and B. Obviously the tree line shore preservation applies. If there's any construction, it's supposed to, be done adjacent to, during construction, proper site predomination is supposed to be taken prior to the finalization of the building permit, as the dwelling has an open building permit as well, the gazebo doesn't have one. So prior to the finalizations of the building permit, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the gazebo complies with the granted minimum water setback. The applicants agree to contact the building department to finalize the dwelling permit. The applicants must obtain a building permit for the gazebo. And if the variance is approved, the applicants must submit an environmental impact study to determine that there will be no negative impacts on the natural heritage features as per section 5.3.4 of the official plan. The applicants will be required to implement all recommendations of the EIS.
Those would be the conditions if we approved it.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions with respect to this application? Gerald?
Well, not really a question. I think the issue I have is if we look at allowing this, it opens the floodgate for gazebos and that sort of thing. We run into a lot of issues with sleeping cabins, cottages that are too close and in the setbacks. You know, and that's a little more of a difficult situation. Sometimes it's a hardship. Whereas a gazebo, you know, they're nice to have, but by approving this, I just see we're open floodgates for, you know, the word to get out, you know, this building gazebo will just go for a minor variance and you let them do it and you let them do it. And I think when we look at staff comment here and their recommendation, I think that's where this goes is they don't want to be flooded with applications for a gazebo. And a gazebo is not a hardship. It's not a sleeping cabin. It's not extension of the cottage where you have to tear part of the cottage down. So with that, that's.
If
kind
that's
of my-
it sets precedence.
It sets precedent.
well,
and
I have to say, I think as a taxpayer, And this is our permanent home and has been for 20 years. And as a taxpayer, I think I should have the right to come and present my point of view and be considered individually, not painted with the same brush as everybody else. I feel I deserve that, and we deserve that. We've moved here. We've been here for many long years. His family's been here on the lake since 1960. So we have a vested
The late
interest in making sure that everything is done right and done well. And this fell through a crack because it didn't occur to us, because it wasn't a structure to us. You know, I mean, so you can call it a neophyte or whatever, but it seems a little draconian to paint everybody and not to take that consideration of what the intention was. I think that's really important.
If it's
Pretty hard, excuse me, but it's pretty hard to produce a bylaw and then have a whole bunch of exceptions to it. That's the problem.
Yeah,
And
The point is, if people were to meet the same sort of criteria that we have here, and it's been examined by you folks, we've got pictures to show that it's not, it doesn't seem to be at variance to much at all, except for less than 30 feet. And if someone were to make, with the same material, make the same claim, I think they should come to a meeting like this to explain themselves and to explain where these structures are and the rest of it. I don't think this sets a precedent at all. It does if you're baldly saying it's not within 66 feet. You know, the 66 feet thing. The 66 feet, we didn't consider at all. The building that's there is within 24 feet of the water, of the high water mark. It's covered in trees. People can't see it when they go by. And they certainly can't see this covered porch or whatever, which is in line with the house. It's architecturally, if you study the pictures at all, it's architecturally part of the house. It's separated by a bit of deck, but it's part of the house. And it's so different than someone starting out to build a gazebo down by the water where everyone would like it. But that's not what we did.
no.
Ours is by the house. It's right in line with, as the pictures show, in line with the house. We were just, I mean, I've understood this 66-foot bylaw for years and wouldn't dream of building anything close to the water. Our bunkie, which was behind the original house, was moved up a hill far away from the water. And I had to have a deck put on it because it's over such rough territory. Where our cottage is located is at the base of a very steep hill. And that's why it was
And-
built the way it was.
Yeah, and that's why we have trouble sometimes with our cell and other things, our satellite.
Well, it's in the shadow of
Yeah,
of another big hill, but we're just appealing to a committee of adjustment that takes the bylaw, sees that it's 66 feet back, but hopefully has the wherewithal to imagine what this variance is, what it's about, why we're applying for a variance, which we never, quite frankly, never
No, never
realized we would be doing.
yeah, we just didn't think it would be, dismissed out of,
And that-
well, this is it, and there's the line in the sand.
And that's what causes us some of the issues, is that things aren't thought of,
Yes,
and then we have to deal with after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
we understand.
And, it's not a question of that doesn't, it looks great. That's not the question. It's the fact that the fact that it's got the roof on it doesn't conform to the bylaws, and that's where our struggle comes in, and we're sympathetic to your to your needs and your wants there.
Yeah, and I got a question for Danielle, and I think I know the answer, but there's no difference between a permanent roof and like a temporary seasonal, there's no.
No, there's no difference. It's
difference, right?
anytime a structure has a roof over
Right.
it or walls, it's
Yep.
considered enclosed and
Okay.
an accessory structure.
Is there anything that you know of that they could put in place of that structure? The roof structure?
Not in that location.
Okay.
So as a permanent roof, obviously is totally covered. What about a slatted roof?
I do believe anything that's considered to be a roof. Is like, so like I do know that there has been some discussion, like if pergolas are a roof or not. I don't remember the answer on that, but the moment, yeah, you have put anything as a roof, it's considered a structure technically.
I should say that after 20 some odd years, it has been reshingled
Yeah.
With
we
the
just
house.
Reshingled it last month
with the house.
with the house, same
Because we
color.
wanted to be
Yeah,
coordinated with the house. It's,
Mhm.
have you examined the pictures?
Oh, yeah,
Gentlemen?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like-
I sympathize with you. I really do. I look at it and go, you know what, there's nothing wrong with the look of it and everything. I know that the issue is that we're gonna open up a can of worms for sure. So I really do sympathize with you, but saying all that, the water setback issue is just something that they don't, it's just traditionally and still is, it's not, there's basically no wiggle room on it.
But there must be. And I'm just gonna throw a number out, 20 of these structures that are down by the water,
yeah.
by the water.
We've seen
And the
people
only
put
time those people are gonna get,
sheds down there.
be approached about this is if they apply and have people coming out, taking pictures of the place and all the rest of it. That's the only time
They're gonna get caught.
that they're gonna
But
get
we,
caught.
we see them. We know where they are.
Don, your mic,
What's that?
Don.
The bylaws on.
Don, your mic.
The bylaws are controlled by complaints in writing. That's a fact,
Well, yes.
because I respect your opinion, but that's the way it works.
They, I'm so, that works. And
It doesn't work though.
No, it doesn't work because people don't want to get into this turning neighbors in. It
Right.
smacks
I know.
Nazism.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, but turning neighbors in, turning family in,
Yeah.
people don't like that. So when this began when we started getting an easement. Now that easement on a road that's already there has so far cost us in lawyers'
Thousands.
fees and whatever, close to $20,000
Yeah.
for a road that's already there.
Yeah, just to have a right of way. And in fact, there was a part of our causeway that was the size, Greg Bishop says it's the size of a large Chesterfield. And it didn't have a PIN number on it. But meanwhile, we are only the third owners. So somehow it managed to go from the Peckovers, who were the original owners, and put that causeway in the 50s. It managed to go to McGeach, the second owners, and then to us. And with us, they somehow caught it with the survey, that it didn't have a PIN number on it. You don't think that wasn't an issue? I mean,
That-
and they said, oh, that belongs to the Vipons. Well, the Vipons are our neighbors on the other side of the causeway. No, it didn't belong to them. And then they realized, oh, no, it doesn't. And they assigned a PIN number. That'll be a couple $1,000s. Oh, okay.
That was after a survey was done.
Yeah.
And the.
And that was when Mr. Selby was our lawyer at the time, and Greg Bishop was our surveyor, and they were both. They really were helpful, trying to help us through all that. And that was, again, where we were just trying to get a right of way from one lot to the other. And that's where this
taken
all
5
started.
years,
Yeah,
and-
longer than
and-
that, Gord.
close to $20,000.
Yeah.
We went to a committee meeting where, what was that for? It was a meeting of consent or whatever a few years ago.
Yeah,
And the then mayor, who was, what was her name?
Andrea
And
Roberts.
said at the end of it, what is taking you folks so long?
well, part of that, we got sick. We had bladder cancer and heart disease, and so we were both very ill. So
But,
we had to put some things that, off for a while.
but this has been such a long,
This,
winding
yeah,
road.
and
And
cost-
the end of it, they find a little cabin, which is 80 feet out in the middle of the bush, which was built. See, this property was originally bought as 2 lots.
Mhm.
And then it was amalgamated,
for whatever reason.
and
all
then
of a
it
sudden-
was separated. And then it was amalgamated.
Yeah.
But if the same person owns 2 adjoining pieces of property, they automatically become one.
No, no,
That
ours wasn't,
between
and
Greg
it is
Bishop,
now.
the surveyor, and Selby, who was the lawyer at the time, said, you can do that. And we were all for, we were okay with that. Or you can keep it separate if you put different names. on
Different
it.
names on, yeah,
And so she would have one and I would have
Mhm.
another. And
exactly.
then there was a thing about, you didn't have to do that if you what? Bought the shoreline allowance
Around the one,
and
which
not
we
the
did.
other?
So we bought the shoreline allowance around the one that we're talking
lot
about
30.
today, lot 29. No. We bought the shoreline allowance,
lot
lot 29, where the gazebo is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, I know, is taking us up quite a distance from the issue of the gazebo. But the gazebo, the,
But if you understand our frustration with regard to this, it's been.
Well, I quite understand
Huge.
your frustration because, but our job is to look at each individual case. And unfortunately, you are presenting a pretty good case for your side of it. However, your own association is objecting to it.
they object to everything.
That's.
First
what
time
they're-
I've seen a letter from them.
Yeah, that's.
First time I've seen a letter from them.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you're
None
saying
of
this is the first time, so what you're saying, it doesn't happen a lot.
No.
They
No.
were invited to come out and look at it. The fellow prince, who is the whatever,
Jim, yeah.
is saying, we're sorry this is happening to you, but whatever.
Yeah, the
If
line is.
if this is so cut and dried, why do you have a committee of adjustment? Surely it's to examine in a subjective way what doesn't conform with the bylaw.
That's our
Isn't
job.
And
That's our job.
unfortunately, this doesn't conform.
No,
That's-
but isn't the job of the committee of adjustment to deal with situations that don't? conform?
Individually.
We
Individually.
just saw in this first case, someone building a road within 5 feet of another road. That was not, but you passed that.
Well, I guess, you can. You're questioning this committee and what it is they do, and I'm new to this committee, and the committee of adjustments been around for many years. My father was part of this. Don's been here for 40
Yeah.
years. What you're saying has some legitimacy, but we have rules that we need to follow. And
But-
it's-
I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
So like the reason the difference between like the previous one and this one is anything to do with the water setback, our official plan puts out in black and white, that is, it's strictly adhered to. So that is one of the tests of the minor variance. 1, is it minor? 2, is it desirable? 3, does it meet general intent of the or zoning bylaw? And does it meet the general intent of the official plan? So those are the 4 tests the committee members have to evaluate each variance on. Which is the official plan states 1 is water setbacks are to be strictly adhered to. So getting around the word strictly is the committee's job.
Then why have a committee of adjustment if you're going to just take your 66 feet and say, that's it? Why are we even sitting here?
Yeah, why do we go through all this and all this money? if
Because
we're
not
just-
everybody is in favor of bylaws. and they go ahead and do it themselves.
I'm in favor of bylaws.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
you have
we-
to. have-
Well, if you're in favor of the bylaw, then you make our decision a lot early, a lot easier.
but that's what you have a committee of adjustment for.
Well, no, we've listened to what you're saying, and
Circumstances.
just-
there isn't one member of this committee that doesn't feel badly about your situation. However, that doesn't solve the problem. And and you've made a very compelling case. But whether people have changed their minds or whatever, I don't know. We won't know until we call for a vote. But the bylaws are enforced by written complaints. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's the way it works.
So what sank our ship was this letter, more or less a form letter from the
Jim?
cottage association?
No,
No,
That's what it sounded like.
not, absolutely not at all. I didn't know about that till when I got that,
the
I saw
email,
that this morning.
yeah, and it was sent attached to the agenda this morning and it was emailed, I believe, yesterday or the day before.
So, Mr. Bishop, you're feeling that, our ship should go down here?
Well, I think your ship should go down. I think that's a bit harsh.
The ship should
Good,
go down.
I can tell you that, and again, I'm new to this, but I know that there's been a lot of people that didn't conform to the bylaws, and they were made to remove a lot more than a roof over a gazebo. So I'm just, you're putting us on the spot here, and we're trying to give you our honest opinion, and I am of the opinion that this does set precedent, and it just opens up another can of worms, that's all.
The opinion that
And I,
in this situation, because we are taxpayers, we should have an opportunity to present and to be really considered here.
That's
and
why
we-
you're
and that's what
here.
We're doing, that's why we're here, and I'm sympathetic.
But what I'm hearing though is I'm sympathetic and yes, and I can see it doesn't bother anybody. No one's ever complained about it, except they have this rule of the KCLOA, which we're a part of for many, many years. Then what are we talking about here? Like,
Now we're talking,
yeah.
Mhm.
Mr. Walker.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have to move forward here. And I'm prepared to make a motion that we deny the application for I'm gonna be the bad guy, I guess, but that we deny the application for
Just let him finish.
that we deny the application for the variance for the gazebo.
Okay. Is the applicant, is there a seconder for that motion? Chris? So we'll call for if it's been moved and seconded, that the variance to section 5.2 to permit a gazebo to have a 10-meter or 33-foot water setback as opposed to permitted 20 meters or 66 feet is denied.
So who voted? Did all of you vote?
We're going to,
We're going to vote right now.
part of the procedure.
your microphone's off, sir.
In the previous case, two, I think, of you gentlemen were out and viewed the property. Were you out to view our property? Would you mind doing that before you make a decision?
I think we would be willing to do that. We'll defer it
Yes,
based on a site visit.
that's what we would ask for, to see the reasonableness of it, where it sits, trees and, all around, the whole business. You'll have a much better idea of what this is all about. The other thing is, when I heard the way this was going, is there an appeal process?
Yes, there is an appeal.
To
You have the right of appeal.
to-
If we turn you down today, you have a right of appeal. You can go to the province
Yes,
and
The-
make your appeal together.
previous.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a different name for it now, but.
Well, it used
The
to be,
Ontario, yeah, Ontario Land Tribunals.
I would appreciate if you'd come out and look at it first. Because I think
Yeah,
what we've tried
We
to
have
do.
another application from this applicant, do we not?
The next
Yes.
one.
And is it somewhat,
They're two
Tied in.
different applications, so we have to just make decision on one and then make an individual decision on the other.
Yeah, we're gonna deal with them separate.
yes,
Yeah.
right, but there's still another application here.
Yes,
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right,
Would you be willing to amend your motion that deferred based on the site visit?
I can't see where it's gonna change it. It's not gonna change my mind, and I don't wanna be,
Your mind,
I don't, it's, the reasoning is not because it's not good looking and it's not seen. It's a principle of the bylaw. It's a principle of our staff, which have recommended, and they just didn't do that because because they didn't like the look of it or whatever. They're doing it by our bylaws. They're doing it by their experience, and they've definitely looked into this and looked at all facets of how this is being presented and actually what that is. And a lot of it, as you brought up, yes, we just passed another one too close to a road. We've had a number of issues here where we've passed cottages into that space as well. But a gazebo is not in my mind, is not a hardship. If you've got the corner of your cottage, it's someone built 25 or 40 years ago and it's in the water setback. We're not gonna make people tear a cottage down or cut the corner of it off to meet the bylaw. So that, in my mind, is what a minor variance is about.
That-
And you got a lovely gazebo, you got lovely property, you got big property. And we've had a number of instances with large property where people have asked for relief and you just, you shouldn't, you can't do it. You're just, like we've had a big deck, people build a big deck and they come and ask for relief and they got 500 feet of frontage.
Oh,
And you know what? We turned that gentleman down. And there's no, and you just can't set that precedent because it's not a hardship in my mind. I love your gazebo. I'd love to go there and have a coffee, but
well, you're welcome to.
between our planning department, our zoning bylaws, and we're appointed by the council and mandated by the province, we have to take responsibility. And in my mind, I'm sorry, but I don't think that gazebo can stay. And, you've got a cottage that's encroaching, the deck is encroaching, it's all legal. But unfortunately, the gazebo is not gonna be the end of your time on the lake and your enjoyment. It's a hardship, but that's what it is.
When you speak about the cottage, our cottage was a couple of feet on the road allowance.
Yeah.
When it was approved, what we did was buy the road allowance.
Hmm.
So everything's okay that way.
Yeah.
And this situation is as should be, I would think, somehow can consider that 24, 20, the cottage is 26 feet, I think, at its closest point to the water. The
Right,
gazebo is 33.
so
it's back further.
part of that, sir.
It's back as far as it can be and still be on the
So-
deck and close to the kitchen.
So just feel if you were applying to have the legality of the corner of your cottage too close to water and a committee said, no, you gotta move your cottage.
well,
That's a hardship.
Yeah,
That to me is.
Well,
we took
bought-
care of that.
We
We've done
We
that.
bought
That's
it.
my point being, there is a number of people that come to this committee. And they bought a cottage that was built 40 years ago and it's too close to water. So they want to legalize it. We're talking about a residence, a cottage, whatever, it's a
Yeah.
hardship to move that.
Yeah.
A gazebo, you can move that.
Well,
It's a hard,
well,
it's
that's
not a
why
real.
we-
hardship.
that's why we knew we were gonna move here.
So-
In 2004 or 5 or whenever it was, we moved here permanently. So
I'm going
we
to.
made absolutely sure that we were allowed to build in that footprint of that old cottage.
Yes, and you were,
Yeah,
And
we
that-
could
and
go
it's all
up
legal.
and back.
It's
Yeah.
legal. Everything that you've done is legal except for having a gazebo.
Jerry, I'm just gonna jump in here. So I'll read you right from the official plan, what is backing the planning's, this like planning's recommendation. So like I said, in section 5.1.2, it states that the shoreline setback for an individual lot is defined by implementing the zoning bylaw as the water setback. This water setback to be strictly adhered to. Further down the line, it says all owners of the shoreline lots will be encouraged to leave the lands within the shoreline setback substantially undisturbed up to the full depth of the setback where possible. So for example, your cottage was previously set into the water setback. You're legal at the 26 feet. So that is where you have everything else undisturbed until where possible. Where possible is our zoning bylaw in section 3.1.9. Sorry, 3.1.3.19 allows you to have your legal non-complying cottage at that setback. So it says additionally, where the shoreline setback has been disturbed with past activities, the owners will be encouraged to restore the setback to the full natural state. Soil and vegetation within the setback should be disturbed as little as possible to preserve the impression of the lake in the shoreline is undeveloped. Clearing should be restricted to the minimum access and safety for residents and limited to the view of the water. So as it says that it's supposed to be strictly adhered to, and they are allowing you to have your cottage and your deck to be legal as where it previously sat. It's the issue that the gazebo was constructed new, it was constructed within the minimum water setback, so technically, unfortunately, it still has to be strictly adhered to.
So that's what's catching us, is the strictly adhered to. And I understand, I think we all understand, it looks good, everything, there's really nothing wrong, other than we gotta go by the strictly adhered to on this particular case. And I know you're saying about, like, why do you have a committee of adjustments? Well, there's other issues that come up in committee of adjustment that doesn't state that you have to strictly adhere to, that you can do a minor variance on. This particular case, the strictly adhered to is what's catching
So we
me
can
up.
still have our table and 4 chairs and eat there.
And poles
And
sitting. there.
poles up and with a pole going around. So it looks finished.
Well, yes,
Just have to take the brand new roof,
you have to take the roof off, yes,
just roofs,
yes,
believe it.
yeah.
But what's still?
I hope I'm right there.
So the moment it has a roof and walls is what's considers it, or walls, it's considered to be a structure. So the roof can go up, you can still have a table and chairs on your deck. The posts are gonna be up to the building department when they come out to do the final for your house.
Surely they couldn't object to posts.
Well, I'm not sure, how like it's the structural integrity, right? So I'm assuming it has no issues on it, but
Yeah.
I'm not a building inspector.
What do you think our chances are at the next level? At the,
On your mic.
Costs a lot of money for everybody.
I know, but we're into this for 20,000 now.
I don't think they would be very high. And I don't, like, I would truly love to work with you, honest. We all would. It's just that strictly adhered to policy is what we've got to go with. That's,
My point, and I expressed it before, is that if everything is a strictly adherence policy, why do you need?
well, everything's not strictly adhered to policy.
That's
It's just
Setback,
the-
water
it's
setback
just
is-
the water setback. We deal with so many different issues.
Well, and if it comes up, if people are applying for building permits or whatever, so that people come out to look at their places, there will be all kinds of.
There is all kinds of.
Yeah,
All
That's what we're-
sorts.
You have to start somewhere, but
Mike,
having conformity and people following rules and regulations, you just.
That's fine. We have to have rules and regulations so that people will conform, because somebody else may hear your story and say, oh, boys, I better go and find out if I'm doing that right before I do it. Otherwise, you're gonna have the wild, wild west and people are just gonna do whatever they want to do.
In one of our notes to Danielle, we said, one of the things we've learned is don't pick up a hammer without checking with.
yeah. Well, we told everybody.
It's the reality, man.
Yeah,
If,
yeah. And yet we have seen, because we've been there a long time, some of what people have done at the water, you know.
This is.
You'll get no argument from any of us.
Oh,
No,
We've all seen it, but we just can't turn a blind eye to things that come to us that have been identified and say, yeah, that's okay.
yeah, we have
We just can't, that
We
we
have
can't do.
pooping geese there now, which we've never had.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And again, we're all sympathetic,
Yeah.
to you. You've done a nice job that looks pretty, but.
We're gonna
that's
proceed.
the-
So you're not, so you expressed the idea that you would come out and at least look at.
You know what,
You looked at this man's, road within 5 feet of the road.
yes, I mean, I could come out and look, if you wanna, I'm okay, I'll go out and look at it, Phil. I don't think it's gonna change anything,
Okay.
but
I'll go with him.
I will, if you wanna defer it,
Okay.
I will
Yes.
at least go and look at it for you.
That would be.
willing to
Again, I
change
don't
it?
think it'll change anything, but I will go.
Let's move on here. We got,
Yeah, we're gonna be all day if we don't. Are you prepared to
So-
amend your motion to defer?
Mr. Chair, I'll amend the motion that we defer this file for a site visit.
Is there a seconder for that? Barry, voice?
Thank you, Jen.
Be resolved. It's moved and seconded that the committee's decision with respect to file D 13 MV 2023-011 be recorded as follows. The variance to section 5.2 to permit a gazebo to have a 10-meter or 33-foot water setback as opposed to permitted 20 meters is deferred based for a site visit. Carried? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to your next case. We may have set a record. We may have just set a record for time on one case.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but you can see my.
You do, and before we carry on, you do have the right of appeal. So you would just have to deal with that. If the decision terms that you're denied the approval, you just deal with Danielle, and she'll put you in the proper situation. But it's very costly, not just for you, but for the township as well.
Well, that's what we're trying to go for.
Right, well, we'll go and have our visit and hopefully we'll have an open mind.
So
So,
always have an open mind. We have rules and regulations.
okay, so you have another case before us, is that correct? Where's the second one? And the request is for a section 3.1 to permit a private cabin to be permitted before the main use is established on the lot, is that correct? That's you kind of got the cart before the horse.
I'm sorry.
The cabin? Yeah, he was reading it. Yeah, we can build it, yeah, we didn't build the cabin. The cabin was there when we bought. And what we built, we put a deck, rather than 2 steps up, we put a deck on so we could put, 2 chairs out there.
50 square feet.
It's 50 square feet.
The size of the building is 100. It's, so,
100 square feet, you don't need a permit.
well, that's
Well,
what
we didn't
that's
build
what-
it.
We didn't build it, but it was on the property when we got there. It was, it's on the second property, lot 30. And we put a deck, a small deck, less than 50 square feet.
Yeah, and
On
there's
the
a,
front of it
there's a
because it was
picture
hard
of
to
it.
get up.
there's a picture of it, yeah. It was hard to get up, and when you were going in and out, we had little kids then. We remember we had a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old. And, they like to play there because the cabin was only, our cottage was only 500 square feet. So ourselves and, you know, 3 kids, you know, that was a place we thought, oh, well, that's great. That's a place that they can go and, you know, hang out and play their games and stuff. And that's what they did. They called it the Lakefront Fishing Club.
Despite the fact that it was 80 feet out in the bush.
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, this is a separate lot than we talked about.
Yeah, the
before,
separate
Yes.
lot. This is lot 30.
But it's still out on the point, this big.
Yeah,
point property has two
yeah.
lots.
Yeah. And
So
it has
this
a
is
boathouse on it.
This property was an island. And in
Right.
the 50s, the original
Peckover.
Peckover challenged Bill Curry at the time to put a causeway out to it.
Right, you would
And
explain that.
that's
Yeah.
the,
You picked the wrong guy to argue with Bill Curry.
Yeah.
So,
you knew it, did you?
so to clarify then, the lot, this is the one that's out on the point. In our little diagram, there's a little yellow cabin. This is
That's
what
the
we're
one.
talking
That's.
Yeah, that's
So-
it.
The issue being, there's a cabin there before
Yeah.
there's a
A dwelling,
cottage.
correct.
Yeah.
Doesn't meet the zoning.
And it's only become an issue because now they're trying to, they're not amalgamated, right?
Correct.
And now they're trying to make sure that these are 2 separate lots.
To be
Two
the two
legal
lots,
right?
separate lots.
Okay.
So I can give you some background there.
Yeah.
The boathouse was built in 1971, so it's grandfathered in. Okay,
We're not.
no, so it was built prior to 1977. So it is legal non-complying, therefore there is no issues with the boathouse. The issue is that there is a private cabin, which is before the main use of the property. A private cabin is an accessory building, so it's supposed to be an accessory to a main use, which is not there.
So there's 2 buildings on the property, the boathouse and this little cabin,
Correct.
and yet the boathouse is legal.
Yep.
Non-compliant.
Yep.
And it will remain that way.
Oh, yeah, legal
It remains that
non-conforming,
way,
sorry, yeah.
yes. Any questions?
So is the intent to build a cottage?
Well, we're leaving it to one.
Okay, so at
Do
this
you mind
point,
turning your
there is,
microphone on?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no one's building anything out there. No one has the money for it. We're too busy spending it trying to save the gazebo.
Sorry, and I'm sure this says it in there. How much, what's the square footage of the cabin?
Square feet.
100 square feet plus the deck?
Yeah,
The deck was added.
It's about.
We added the deck after.
yeah.
So total about 140 square feet. Okay, 143. Okay.
question for Danielle. If the cabin is 100 square feet, does it require a permit?
So it doesn't require a permit, but it still is not permitted on the property because it's an accessory use. So you're not allowed to have any accessory uses on the property before the meeting.
And then the boathouse gets around that because it's already legal now before the bylaw. So this cabin was constructed after the bylaw.
We're not sure what date.
No, it was
But-
McGeach, we thought. Maybe it was Peckover. We don't know, but
So I did show the building department and they say that it's not. part of it.
Well, whatever.
So another question, can they move that back on their lot?
So they are not able to, they are not a private capital.
Oh, there you go. That's not an option.
There is a few possible options and I have no idea if you guys would be open to them or not. And you listen to me closely, Danielle, in case I screw this up. But, so you can make it, you can make a cabin or like a 600 square feet. Would make it, what do you call it? Like a, sorry, what?
It would be considered a dwelling.
It would be considered a dwelling. Now, I know that's a bit of a, you'd have to expand it by roughly 450 square feet. Is that an option that you guys would look into
No,
at all?
but-
Okay. Right?
This is not a. big
Yeah.
Cabin, it's.
Okay.
It's not.
I'm-
ugly, it's not.
but
No, I'm-
promote it like
Right.
that, like, you
But
know.
I know, I'm just trying to,
Yeah, I
s-
know, I appreciate.
I'm-
The thing as well. that This property was bought as one property. Then Yeah, I mentioned.
Yeah.
It was then amalgamated, then it was separated, amalgamated again and separated. And through all of this little cabin, close to 80 feet back in the woods, has been sitting there. It needs a new roof too.
Yeah, and luckily we didn't put one on that one.
The,
You rented out to the raccoon?
it's
Well, yes, actually a raccoon did get in there. No, it was
mice
mice and
and
a
had the
squirrel.
babies in there.
Yeah,
So
So another question for Danielle, if they were to apply for a building permit?
Yep.
Can that cabin stay?
If they were applied for a building permit for a main use,
Yes,
yes, but then they'd have to also show signs of building.
within 2 years.
I would have to ask the building department, but I do.
Used to be 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's within a year, but,
Oh,
I
it's
could,
a year now.
I believe I'd have to ask them.
So that's another option is apply for a building permit.
to put another building on.
Either add to it or put another 600 square foot building.
You'd have to apply.
I'm 77 and not in good health. I
You
don't
said
have time.
You know, in order to have 2 lots, like you mentioned, you went from one amalgamated lot to 2 to back to 1 to back to 2. So now you're sitting on a, you know, not that it's probably relevant, but it isn't. You're sitting on 2 lots now, a vacant lot on Kenny's Lake's probably $1 million. And we have a somewhat of a solution if you were to get a building permit. Or, you know, you've got a legal non-complying boathouse, which is legal. It's not conforming, but it is legal and nobody's gonna make you move it.
Okay,
Which is good.
okay, what if we put a outhouse on there and say, there it is, there's the building.
No,
So the issue there is that you don't have a main use. So the main use has to be a dwelling, which is a minimum size of 600 square feet or 55 square meters. That is the issue because the private cabin is an accessory to the main use. And that's what the variance is presented for.
See,
so you would have to, what you would have to do, what I think the easiest thing you would do is come up with a building plan to expand this to 600 square feet, a building permit to expand it to 600 square feet. Unfortunately, you'd have to also apply for a septic system. Doesn't mean you'd have to put it in at the time, but you would have to.
Honestly,
So I don't, I'm just trying to think of ways that you could
so
pop-
around it.
get her, you know, kind of, yeah, to make it legal.
Legal.
So it's, and I know this from experience, because
give for storage now
could
for
we
the
take the
boathouse
deck off?
stuff.
If that makes
Yeah,
it
let's
over
take
100
the
square
deck
feet,
off.
take the deck off. Rip the deck off.
So the issue is that it's an accessory building before the main use. So
With or without the deck?
yeah, the deck doesn't matter for us. It's more the fact of the use of the, like, see, there is no main use on the property. Like, someone can't apply to put a garage on a vacant property without a dwelling. Same thing here.
You know, 20 some odd years ago, I had applied to the building department to put a garage on lot 30, which is at the end, and was told that same thing, that have to have a structure on it first. These are 2 separate lots, so I'm aware of it. That building was sitting there at the time. And
No one
it's,
said
it's
anything.
such an inconsequential building that we don't ever think of, you certainly
No.
wouldn't add to.
No one's using it now. We've just got stuff in there like everybody has, you know?
Yeah, so the reason why that would have been caught was when we were advised of this building was during planning applications, we have to review the property for compliance entirety. So we either receive complaints via neighbors or public members, or we have to look at a property for compliance during planning applications. So when you went for the easement for the right of way, that's planning application, we had to review the property. It was originally reviewed as you had 2 bunkies because it was all one lot and the gazebo. Now that it's separated, you just have a private cabin or a bunkie that doesn't have a main use. That's how that was found. So I'm not sure why 20 years ago they didn't mention that to you when you mentioned the garage, but unfortunately, with the Planning Act, we can't change our process for it.
You're not having a very good day. Uh, And personally, I'm doing the exact same thing. The right to it, I'm putting 140 square foot shed on a vacant lot, and I went in and I'm going through the exact same process. So I have to do a building permit and do a septic permit to be able to put the 140 square foot shed on that property on my own. So I feel for you, and I just want you to know that I'm right in the middle of doing the exact same thing.
And that will qualify as a principal building on the property?
Yeah.
So what if you apply?
That would,
I,
that would
So-
make that stick.
So the intention of Mr. Boyce's permit is to build a dwelling. So that's why the building department, I assume, has allowed them to have this 140 square foot as like a storage construction shed or something or other. Yeah, but you do have to show signs of building for the dwelling to allow that construction use.
Someone make a motion.
You're coming out to look at the, coming out to look at the gazebo, if you wouldn't mind traveling through the bush to see this little cabin.
We want to defer,
Might as well.
why
Well,
defer the decision?
Someone make a motion then?
I'll make a motion to defer the decision until we come out site.
That's what
visit.
Is there a seconder for that, please? Barry? Be resolved, the committee's decision with respect to P 13, 2023, number 12, be recorded as follows. Variance to section 0.1 to permit a private cabin to be permitted before the main use seasonal dwelling is established on the lot is deferred for a site visit. Please indicate your support. Okay, it's carried. So we'll, we may not all go at the same time, so. But we will appear there before the next meeting.
What I'll do is I'll send an email out to see what days you have available and then coordinate it also with the committee members' availability. If you wish to be there during that time.
When is your
It is August.
The
August 9th.
August 9th, yeah.
That's fair.
So Danielle will communicate with you when. Better for us if we all went together, but you're not allowed to have. More than two
You can't
people
have
go at a
quorum.
time.
Yeah, we can't have quorum unless.
Because it's-
considered a meeting. Yes,
Well, it is because it means that you maybe made your mind up before the meeting.
I see, okay.
Okay.
and if you wouldn't mind talking one of your kids into being a doctor in Halliburton, that'd be great too, Blair.
Unfortunately, they're in Cape Coral, Florida, Boston, and Colorado.
But the one is going to retire here. Yeah,
The
that's,
one
that's
they
the one we're leaving the front,
He's
lot
a-
32.
He's a trauma surgeon, would fit into this community fabulously well.
Yeah, yeah, all his patients are either unconscious or going to be unconscious.
He has
Yeah, he
great, he
understands.
says he's great, has great,
People skills.
well, respect for veterinarians now. Because very few of their patients can talk to them either.
Thank you.
He says he sees people when they're having their worst day. Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that with you right now.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's very
That's
true.
true.
All right, well,
At any rate.
thanks for your time.
We'll fit it. We'll sit there.
Well,
You want to go outside and cry?
yeah, I'd like a drink, but it's too early. I think I'll go sit under my gazebo while I can. Sorry.
Next one we're dealing with is land use.
So,
Right, I need to speed this thing up a little bit.
yep. Your mic, don't, your mic.
What keeps going off on?
I know, I'm not sure why they're timing out, but they are. So Mr. Windsor is unable to.
Nobody's sitting there anyway.
No, so Mr. Windsor is unable to attend the meeting today, as he's in the United Kingdom. So if you wish, I can present the file and can go from there.
Okay, well, let's get off with this thing here. So this is for a water closet on the main floor.
So, yeah, so what Mr. Windsor wishes is that
Is that like
he,
a washroom?
yes, so they're considered a water closet in the bylaw, but it's a bathroom.
Alright.
So he wants to put a bathroom on out of his 2 stories, the top story is a private cabin, the bottom story is a garage or workshop. He wishes to have the garage there for ease. It just works better functionally for him. I can say like this, like staff recommendation, is that we don't have any concerns. The water closet appears to be minor and desirable. That we have received no comments on this file. And if you choose to wish to grant the application, the variance, so it applies to the water closet in the garage. The applicant must return the private cabin attached to the private garage, which is an additional building, back to storage by August 1st. The applicant must book outstanding inspections for the workshop / garage, which the water closet is to be in. And the applicant must apply for a septic permit to address the outstanding septic issues and the water closet.
I don't see anything wrong with that. Go ahead, Bill.
So I'll make a motion that we grant this minor variance, subject to the
Conditions.
conditions that were suggested by staff.
Seconder,
I'll second.
Barry? The move and second that the committee's decision with respect to D13 MV 2023-15 be recorded as follows. Variance to section 3.1 to put a water closet be located in a private garage, granted, subject to the provisions as listed. Oh, that's a fast one. What we got next? Bergman and Powers.
Hello.
This is a request for a private cabin or accessory building to have a minimum water setback of 50 feet as opposed to permitted 66 feet. And a private cabin to have a minimum interior side lot setback of 2.4 meters or 8 feet. I don't think we have any problem with the side yard setback, but we're back to the same thing on this other bit. 66 feet. It's minimum setback of 50 feet. They're supposed to be 66. It must be a pretty small lot.
Yeah, Mr. Powers is on the screen if you wish for him.
Hey there.
Okay. I
Hi.
didn't know you were there.
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Can you defend this thing for me? We move on here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like listening to the Burleys there, I understand that the water setback is a pretty strict requirement. So I'll kind of speak to it. Like, I guess why I would consider the committee to make consideration to a variance. One is it is a very small lot and it's very, very hilly lot. So I know that the recommendation of the staff was they're not sure there's other spots, but I really would say that there are not a lot of other spots at all on my lot. It's pretty distressed. And that is kind of the only landing that we have. It was built prior to the house to me purchasing it. So it's existing currently. And as well, I think the other reason that I would ask to be considered is just that it's well back from the actual house itself. So the house is fine. It was legally non-conforming because of its date, and we got the building permit for that. So It's set actually quite a bit further back from the front of my house. So even from a setback perspective, it's actually quite far back from the water compared to the rest of the property. And two, it's you know, if you're considering the protection of the natural environment of the shoreline, it's on a hill, quite far, not far from distance wise, but you know, even from a perspective wise from the actual waterfront itself. The pictures don't quite do it justice in the file, but there is quite a big hill that it's up on, kind of that keeps it away from the water, with trees in front of it to kind of keep it from the shoreline. So those would be some of the things I would ask to be considered.
You just described the Halliburton Highlands.
Oh, I know, exactly. So that's one. And it's also, you talk about convenience as another option. It's that you're not putting
To the previous request.
yeah. You talked a little bit about like, you don't want to put too undue convenience on the owner. So I think for us, it's very, very close to the minimum setback. Like it says that at 50 feet, like I think the edge of the cabin is probably at the 60 feet mark. Like it's right there. It would be several thousands of dollars for me to tear it down because it exists. And, you know, because of the topography where it is quite far from the shoreline, up on a hill, I would ask, you know, for some consideration there.
Well, we got exactly the same problem as what we have with the previous guy. Sorry,
Would you like me to read the public comments received?
pardon?
Would you like me to read the public comments that we received?
Absolutely. We got some comments to listen to.
So we did.
Yep.
We did receive one comment from the neighbors. So they say they strongly support the variance application and they note that the structure does not impede their property and it is obscured from sight and no negative impacts are on their enjoyment of their own property. If you all decide to grant the variance, the conditions are as follows. So the variance applies to the private cabin on the property sketch. The county Halliburton shoreline tree preservation applies. Additional native shoreline vegetation shall be planted to screen the buildings, naturalize the shoreline and address any environmental concerns. During construction, obviously proper site preparation and construction methods are to be obtained if they are going to be doing any construction. The applicant must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the private cabin meets the granted interior side lot line setback and a minimum water setback. If the variance is approved, the applicant must obtain an environmental impact study to determine that there will be no negative impacts on the natural heritage features as per section 5.3.4 of the official plan. The applicants will be required to implement all recommendations of the EIS report.
Is this thing already built?
Yep. Yeah. So I think a few of those wouldn't really apply. But yes, it is. It's already built. It's already there.
Get a permit?
Well, no, not like I didn't build it. So it was on the lot before I purchased the property.
Well, you should have really asked for a permit. Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't allowed you to put it where you put it.
I didn't put it.
You
They like
It was
to their
already
point, they-
there,
It's already there.
already there.
Prior to.
Yeah.
Well, you're half right. Any questions for this gentleman, Mr. Walker?
So I'm looking at the photograph there.
Yep.
Trying to determine here, we got three photographs, one with the propane tank in the middle.
Yep.
On the left, and then it appears like the cabin lines up with that kind of roof line. Is that not the end of the cottage?
Yeah, that's the back of the cottage. Yeah. So the front of the cottage goes well further ahead of it.
So the rear of the cottage is
Is right at the
lines up with that little monkey.
yeah. And you can see I can't go any further back. Like there's a hill there.
Right. But, so when I look at the picture, the actual survey, the frame building and the frame bunkie, they don't line up with the way the picture is.
They did just rebuild their cottage. So the surveyor was prior to the new rebuild.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
tilted back. So
Because, okay, so the picture is right,
Yeah.
but the survey is wrong.
Yeah, the survey.
Well, yeah, the survey is of the what it was when they surveyed it, and now when I applied for the building application. So yeah, I got the approval to go back a few feet back when I built the new property. So that's why they're lined up. Yeah.
So another question, is the shed legal and is the privy legal?
Oh, so the shed is gone? That was another requirement of the, of me buying the shore allowance, so that's gone, and the privy is also gone. So those are both gone. So the only thing that's left is that larger,
Yeah,
structure, yeah.
and there's no way it can be moved back another, what's it need to go 15 feet?
16.
No.
Not even where the privy was?
No, that's, you can see, if you look at the other picture, the privy, if you look at the one picture, where it has the sort of rock and it's looking over my deck. On page 1 of the pictures, that is kind of like where those rocks were. If you're standing right there taking the photo, that's where the privy was, but that's a very big hill as well. Yeah. There's really,
Did you, sorry, did you happen to get any estimates to move that building?
oh my
I
God,
know You say there's a hill, but
yeah.
if you read that one part of the condition, be an environmental impact study, that's not gonna be a couple $100. It may be cheaper to try and move that than it will be to try and do an environmental impact study.
Well, that's one of the questions I had of the conditions, just because the 3 other conditions that preceded that were not applicable about construction. And so I had a question on that one. Like, would you do an environmental impact study on something that exists like that, like already?
So the reason why the condition for the environmental impact study is implemented is because staff is recommending against approving this. As well as because the official plan states that the water setback is to be strictly adhered to. So this would, so if the committee decides to grant the variance of the 50 feet, the EIS would then help the no negative impacts on natural heritage as per section 5.3.4 of the official plan.
So I don't know what environmental impact study costs. I know just getting rid of it, like to move it would probably be several thousand. And honestly, if you pick up a structure like that with a crane, it would probably, like, I don't know if it would survive the move, who knows? And then to get rid of it, for me to hire a crew to come and demolish this is probably 5,000 to 10,000 maybe, right? So. Like, is environmental impact study more or less than that?
I'm not sure. You would
I'm
have
not
to,
sure.
you'd have to contact the local or environmental impact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, my mic's not on there. I wouldn't be surprised to be more money than that, but I'm not, don't hold me to that, but they are not cheap.
Okay.
no, definitely not.
I honestly, I think you should look at maybe just, it wouldn't hurt for you to get an estimate to somebody. It looks like it's in fairly decent shape, this Point.
It is, but my issue is I really honestly have no place to put it. Like, I couldn't move it anywhere.
But you got big property there, so there must be, you know. there
It's
must
all
be-
hill. It's all a very, very steep hill. You can kind of see from the land survey how the road, my driveway kind of winds through Point and then cuts across. Like, if you go to this property, you would see that, it's like a road, it's scary hill. I can't drive into the winter. It's way too steep. So like on this document, it makes it look like I have a large property, but from actual flat lands, there's literally only like where I park my car and where that bunkie is today are the only 2 pieces of flat land.
What happens if you move it further over before you pull it back
What do you mean further over?
to the sideline?
If you look at the one picture, which has the front facing of it with the door, in order to get out of this issue of the shoreline, it has to go right ways where the debris is right next to it. And you can see there's a hill right there. It's like, it can't go any further to the side.
Okay. Any other questions? Carol?
What I would suggest, and it's entirely up to you. I don't think you're gonna get this, I don't think committee's gonna, I can't speak for everyone, but to get the extension of the 66 feet or the 50 foot as a reduction, I don't think it's gonna happen for you. It might be worth deferring this file to see if and have someone have an estimate and look and see if you actually could move it back. Nothing's impossible, but everything has a dollar value. To maybe see if it is worth moving back 12 or 14, 15 feet and maybe reduce that ask. That's just a suggestion that we could look at as a deferral, and maybe you could reduce that. ask.
I totally agree. I don't think you're gonna get the setback issue. I think your only chance is to move it or demolish it. So maybe defer it and get some estimates of moving it and go from there, or forget about it. And it'll have to go.
So by deferring it, sir, it leaves the file open. And then you may have a better option and you can come back and we can discuss it. If we turn everything down, then your file's closed. And then you find that you would like a little bit of a reduction, you have to reapply. So it does give you a little more leniency to at least look into it a little more seriously.
I guess might as well, like how far, like 15, oh man, that's expensive. Okay, and then, so even, so like this, I guess the environmental impact study is kind of a moot point, because if I can't even get the approval on this, I don't like, at no point am I getting one, right?
Sorry?
The
Well,
thing
I'm-
is, if we said yes, and you had to get an environmental impact study and that didn't turn out favorable, then you still spent the money on the study and you still won't be able to move it or won't be
Yeah.
able to use it. So that's probably not a viable option for you.
I
think
guess like,
your
like,
option is to try and investigate to move it.
I guess I'm like, where am I have no place to put like yard utensils. Like I can't even have a shed. Like, what am I supposed to do with a lawnmower and cans of gas and like my property is, there really is no other flat piece of property. Like, what am I supposed to do?
That's what you're gonna investigate with someone that can level property or move property or dig it out or put a wall up. There is options.
And I guess the fact that it's even further back than the house itself also couldn't kind of weigh in the decision. Like the house itself is, substantially farther toward the shoreline than the bunkie.
So sounds like there's an option, just talking and Danielle can explain it to you a little better, is maybe possibly attaching it to your existing.
Oh, like just building a deck toward it?
It would have to be, go ahead.
So it has to be continuous. So it'd have to be, like the definition. I'd have to ask the building department about that, but it's, you can attach it to the house and it'd be, because though your water setback would be your dwelling water setback, it wouldn't be an accessory building setback at that point. But I believe it would have to be continuous flow from the house to the shed or bunkie. But I can get that information if that's what you would prefer.
Again,
So that's kind of like, but does that mean like a roof? So the roof flows from the bunkie right to my roof?
That's
Or
what
is it like,
I'd
yeah.
have to ask
Okay.
building department, but I do believe it's continuous flow. I believe it has to be enclosed, so not just a roof. I believe it has to have walls. But I could clarify that if that's the way you would. wish
but
to
again,
go.
by deferring it, there's a couple of different options that you can.
Yeah.
Get into.
And Daniel, when you say walls, can that be like a permanent screen? Does it have to be glass or does it have to be solid?
I'm not sure.
You're
I do believe it has to be like heated throughway.
heated through.
But
oh, a heated
I don't-
throughway?
I'm not entirely confident in that answer,
Yeah.
so I'd have to just ask the building department.
Yeah, it's interesting that in order to keep a structure, I have to build a substantially larger structure. But yes, okay, that could be an option.
Yeah, section 3.19 of the zoning bylaws what allows us to
Well,
have a little bit of movement on those legal non-compliant or conforming dwellings.
And I guess just a point, if that was an option, then you may be able to move that closer to the
Mhm.
building so that structure wouldn't cost so much because it would be closer. Just good news, bad news.
So you wanted to go along with that?
Would you prefer we defer it or turn it down?
Yeah, that's your choice.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess to the previous applicants, like, does a site visit in any way help? Or is that just for peace of mind?
I didn't hear what he said.
Site
Like,
visit.
would
I
a
guess,
site
I guess
visit?
if I went out there for a site visit on, it would be, I'd be looking at a place for you to move it to. I guess not really. I do have a little bit of expertise in that area, as in I'm excavator contractor, that not building contractor, but I do the groundwork. So I might come out there and say, you know what, there's a spot here you could move that to. It sounds like it would be in Crane would be involved.
Yep.
Which isn't the end of the world either. But
Yeah.
So that's another option, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but, okay. Yeah, I guess might as well defer it, sure.
For site visit.
You're there. I need a seconder.
No, yeah, you might as well just defer it, I guess, if you're asking me.
So we wanted to defer them both.
I think so.
Variance, be it resolved, the committee's decision with respect to D13 MV 2023-16 be recorded as follows. The variance to section 5.2 to permit a private cabin brackets accessory building to have a minimum water setback of 15.2 meters or 50 feet as opposed to permitted 20 meters, 66 feet is deferred. And this variance to section 3.1 permit a private cabin of a minimum interior side lot setback of 2.4 meters or 8 feet as opposed to 4.5 meters or 15 feet. It's also deferred. Carried.
Yeah, so then, oh, sorry.
We'll be out to see you.
Well, yeah, I can figure that if we need that. Like, I have other people that can tell me where to move it. I guess the question is, like, say in this process, I decide to just get rid of it. What if I just destroy it? Do I just kind of call Danielle there and just say, hey, it's gone? And then what is this? Yeah.
The next process, if you wish.
Good
to
news
just
is you don't
demolish
even
it.
have to provide the lunch.
You would just email me saying that you withdraw your application.
What's that?
Okay.
If you destroyed it, you just have to withdraw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be out that way sometime before the next meeting.
If he decides.
Unless you decide to, yeah.
Tear it down.
So yeah, if you're gonna change your mind and withdraw it, sooner than better, so I don't go out there and have a look for
Shut off
nothing,
10 times a
basically.
day.
Well, if you can give me a heads up, I'll be up there on the 23rd. Anytime before that, I appreciate not anybody visiting. So maybe I can even talk to Danielle, like if.
Yeah, you,
Yeah, I can arrange it for you.
she'll arrange that. Yep.
And
Okay.
then, yeah, so we can arrange something so them to arrive that week if you wish, if that's what's open to them.
And then just recap here. So then my options are the site visit, so you can advise me where it could go. Danielle, you're going to look into the building department to see what other requirements of making it continuous.
Yeah, if you wish, I can do that for you. Just send me an email.
Awesome. And then I guess as actual options to move forward, that is literally it, right? Was there anything else that we discussed?
My consensus of listening to the committee members is that to remain at 50 feet, that would probably be your only option, but they can speak to it.
Yeah, if he doesn't continue approved by the building department, then that's fine. But
Okay.
if not,
Yeah.
he's gonna have to move.
So basically, yeah, you got the two options there, or I guess the third option is you withdraw your thing.
Yeah.
and get rid of it.
I think it'd be smart to be there when Mr. Boyce can be there because he'll give you some ideas.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree. So if it's after the 23rd would be my ask then. And then I'm there for 2 weeks at that point.
Well, let's do that. We'll follow up with that.
Okay, perfect. I'll follow up with committee members for you.
Okay.
Okay, have yourself a great day.
Thank you.
You can have lunch now.
Yeah,
We
thanks.
haven't had any yet. Where is Leroy? Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Perfect. We're just gonna take a 2-minute recess.
He's that guy. Hmm? Turn it off.
Now that we're back from recess, I'm just gonna bring the next applicant forward.
Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Evans. Good heavens, Mrs. Evans. You're probably tired of waiting. We almost had to get the gun out.
Well, just put it away now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
All your frustration is over with. How's that? You guys hear us okay?
Where's his file?
I have it.
You got it?
I'll give it to you. Yep. The bottom one, I'll fill in for you.
Bottom one?
The bottom ones, I'll have to fill in for you when we get there.
Oh, yeah, okay. How many times do we want to go through this?
This will be the last, I promise.
Are you positive about that?
Pretty sure. So,
Okay, let's start her off. Take
Well,
me
thanks
5 minutes to read the number of variances you want here.
yeah, you guys,
as many as last time.
Mr. Chair, however you want to get things going.
You want to deal with these one at a time?
If that works for you, that's fine.
Well, the first one is variance permit a dwelling to have a minimum water setback of 9 meters or 30 feet. As opposed to required 20 meters or 66 feet. Which one, what dwelling is that? Is that your house?
That's the main house, yeah, the cottage, yeah.
We're hardly going to make you tear it down.
Thank you.
2 seconds.
I don't
Mr.
think,
Mrs. Evans, I'm gonna turn off your video because you guys are lagging. So we're just gonna be able to hear you.
Okay,
There we go.
okay.
we're probably not going to argue with that, are we? Can't get the guy built through. Oh,
If you want, I can read out any of the comments and then you guys can discuss
okay.
the requested variances. So we received comments from adjacent neighbors. So we
Who's
received
from?
adjacent neighbors.
Oh, we're Jason.
So we received
We'll find out what Glenn's getting around his buddies.
We received 5 comments. Pardon me, none of the neighbors had any concerns or issues with the proposed minor variances.
So we want that in the minute.
Yeah, so all 5 of them did not have any concerns or issues. I'll also read out the conditions.
They
So-
probably got invited for lunch. We didn't get invited.
So like, given the history of development on the lot and the minimum water setback, interior side lot line setback of the dwelling, the staff consider them to be minor and desirable, especially given the size and configuration of the lot. Staff do not recommend the variances to permit the deck or the hot tub to encroach further into the water setback. Staff, we question if there's any alternative building locations or design options to meet the water setback. But if the committee decides to grant the variances, the following conditions apply. So applied to the sheds, dwelling, hot tub, and attached deck. The County of Haliburton shoreline tree preservation applies. Additional native shoreline vegetation shall be planted to screen the buildings and naturalize the shoreline and address environmental concerns. During any construction, proper site preparation is going to be done. The applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the dwelling, deck, and sheds meet the granted minimum water setback as well as the hot tub. A 1 meter planting strip shall be implemented and or maintained along the south property line abutting 692 Haliburton Lake Road to screen the dwelling from the neighboring property. A 3 meter vegetation buffer shall be implemented or maintained between the development and the creek, as well as the applicants must obtain a building permit for the attached deck.
Gerald?
So I'd like to make a couple comments on this file. Number one, this is the second time we've seen part of this application, but we're dealing with the minor variance committee. This particular lot in today's world wouldn't be allowed because of configuration and near the creek. And the property across the creek is a lowland that's somewhat flooded, so we'll probably never be allowed to have a building permit. And due to the fact that his frontage on the lake is less than 100 feet by the look of it, I really don't have any problem with any of these variances. And my reasoning is the creek is there and the lot is owned by himself, but it cannot be developed. So he's very restrictive of where anything can go on this lot. And there's no chance that anyone's gonna be coming up that creek in a boat or any watercraft to have an impact. And as well as the somewhat treed lot next door cannot be developed because you never get a building permit because it's wet and swampy. That we look at, the wording of adhering to, strictly adhering. I have no problem with that on the lake where people going by can see it. It has an impact. But I have a problem with this creek and the wetland next door being treated as water, even though our bylaw does say that. So for those reasons, I'm gonna be supportive of all the applications.
I'm, same as me, I'm fine with everything, like you said, I, when, I think if we worded it, because the lot is legal non-legal conforming anyway, the
Yeah,
whole lot,
yeah,
the
the whole
entire
lot,
lot, right? So, again, just like Jerry said, it's, yeah, I don't have a problem with any of it. I'd like to know maybe what, the conditions here, I'm just kind of renewed, she just read them, and I'm just briefly going, I don't have a problem with, you got a problem with any of them, Gary? or
No,
Chris?
nothing.
The
So
conditions,
the
like
vegetation.
the vegetation and stuff, a lot of it too, and Glenn and Teresa are listening, is it's just maintain what you've already got.
Yeah.
On a lot of that stuff. And I looked at it, yesterday. You weren't home, I don't think. And, anyway. Yeah.
Oh, we were there. We were just staying out of your way.
Oh, okay, all right.
We were away.
So anyway, I hope you understand that, Glenn, that let's just maintain what you've got. As far as the vegetation and the buffer zone and all that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct?
So yeah, so it's implement or maintain. features.
Yeah.
So if there's 3 vegetation there, then
Yep.
Same thing on the adjacent side where the 1 meter fencing strip. If
Yep.
there's a meter of vegetation, then those maintain.
You understand that, Glenn, Teresa?
We couldn't, we couldn't hear Danielle very well. Sorry to ask you to repeat.
My mic was off.
Well, there we go.
Again,
Yeah, that's an inside joke here.
sorry. If you have 3 meters of vegetation along the creek side, it's just maintaining it, as well as the opposite side to the south. So if you do have a meter of vegetation currently there, it's just to maintain it.
Okay,
Which
there
is.
yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
And I agree too there. You're just trying to make the best out of it's not a bad situation, but the creek to me isn't like the lakefront, and I know it's addressed like that and it has to follow it, but again, I think that I don't have a problem with any of the variants.
So I will ask that if you are considering approving these variances, how does it meet this test strictly adhered to?
Because the whole lot is non-legal conforming. Okay, so
Yep, we just have to write it in the decision, so
Okay.
therefore I ask.
is that good enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would agree. It's
Yeah.
a non-conforming lot. And being that the creek is, not navigable and the property adjoining that again is non-buildable. So I see zero impact on what is being asked for. I do know Mr. Evans did mention too, he's having issues with the creek eroding into his property even more. And that he's probably gonna have to deal with ministry or something to get something to protect his property. He's losing a little bit every time there's a flood, he loses a little bit of property, so he has more things to deal with as well, so anyway, for that reason.
So I guess what we're saying is we can deal with all these issues at one time rather than going through them one at a time. Is that, or do we go through them one at a time, or we can just? Yeah.
If the committee sees no need to drag this out any further, you don't need to do it on our behalf.
Okay. What'd you say?
Go ahead, read it. Well, first thing you gotta do is build a new house. Okay, here we go. We gotta deal with them one at a time anyway. A variance to permit a dwelling to have a minimum water setback brackets creek of 9 meters or 30 feet as opposed to the required minimum of 20 meters or 66 feet. Granted. Probably have to pay another $900. Variance to permit an accessory building of 6 by 16 feet shed to have a minimum water setback brackets creek of 11.8 meters or 39 feet as opposed to required minimum of 20 meters or 66 feet is granted. Carried. Variance permit an accessory building 8 by 12, 96 square feet to have a minimum water setback brackets creek of 11.5 meters, 38 feet as opposed to required minimum of 20 meters or 66 feet is granted. Carried. And a variance to permit a dwelling to have a minimum interior lot, a side lot line setback of 3.84 meters or 12.6 feet as opposed to required minimum of 4.5 meters or 14.8 feet. Granted. And a variance to permit a deck to extend a maximum of 4.27 meters or 14 feet into a minimum water setback as opposed to required maximum of 3 meters or 9.85 feet. Therefore, the minimum water setback of the deck is 6.7 or 22 feet. Granted. So I guess you don't have to build a new house. So. One more here.
Very much.
This one will cost you. The variance to permit a hot tub to have a minimum water setback brackets creek of 7 meters or 23 feet as opposed to required minimum of 20 meters or 66 feet is granted. Gary?
Carried.
If I find out you're emptying that hot tub into the creek. Glenn, are you listening?
I'm listening quite intently.
Don't put the water from the hot tub into the water.
No, we don't.
Okay. You're sworn to that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I
So-
inspected one over in Gooderham one day and the guy's hot tub emptied right into the river.
Wow.
Nice day.
Yeah.
So you can quit sending us money, but if you have
Okay.
a spare, don't be shy about taking us out to lunch.
You can count on it, boys. You can count on it.
Yeah, you can.
Just for clarity's sake, though, as far as the the staff recommendations, we still need to get the OLS verification of the measurements and the building permit for the deck, correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a nice day.
Yeah,
Thank
you should be able to sleep well tonight.
yeah, that's much appreciated.
$900 a copy there's. Okay, so we need a mover and a seconder to adjourn now at 1:04 PM. Chris? Barry? Moved by Chris Bishop, second by Barry Boyce, that this meeting now be adjourned at 1:04 PM. Thank you very much for your recognition and participation.